Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of our F1 2021 My Driver Career Mode here on the channel. Hope you're all having a great day. Today we head to Imola here in Italy. Very excited for this one. We have a brand new track on the schedule coming your way for not only this episode but the next episode as well when we head to Portimao in Portugal. Then of course 3 new races on the schedule this season in general. We have Saudi Arabia coming up at Jeddah later in the season, the second final race of the season, or the penultimate race. So high hopes coming into this one. I can tell you that based off of the practice sessions and everything, this is one of my favorite tracks definitely to drive in the game. It's a very punishing track if you maybe abuse the limits and whatnot, so you got to be very careful with what you're doing with the track limits. But if you're not going a little bit too far over the line and you hit that fine line, this track is one of the most fun tracks to drive in the game. I was having an absolute blast here coming off of the first race of the season, by the way, in Bahrain last episode, where we brought in the new team of Andretti Autosport. They didn't have the debut they were looking for. We had a lot of drama with a lot of drivers that were higher on the R&D chart than us have trouble, and that allowed us to get on the podium there in P3 here in Bahrain. So we'll see what happens in Imola now, as it was taking me a little bit. You can see my first laps around the track. Well, they weren't great. I was having some runoffs here, going wide, going into the sand. It was not pretty, but it got better as time went on, and I was a little bit scared after the first couple of laps, but like I said, it got better as time went on. We got used to the track, and we started getting a lot quicker and just more comfortable around this circuit. And FP1, we were P13 on the medium compound tire, our teammate of Sebastian Vettel there in P1. Now, I mentioned last episode, we have Aston Martin, the best engine in the grid, or on the grid this season currently, at least to start things off, and our reliability is also the best on the grid by quite a considerable margin over second place, which I think is McLaren, who's second on the durability chart. So we come through already into qualifying here, and unfortunately it was very, very wet on the track, so I didn't know what to expect here. I've never made any laps around here in the wet. I've made it laps around Imola in other racing games, and I was hopeful that maybe that experience would help us out a lot here today. Now, just having a nice understanding at least of the track and other types of race cars on this circuit now. So we made one lap relatively early in the session, and it was decent. It put us P5 for the time being, and I tried to set a second lap immediately after. Unfortunately, though, I would actually spin out right here on the back half of the track. So by the end of the session, though, the conditions had improved enough to put on an intermediate set of tires. So everybody right at the end of the session putting the intermediate tires on, heading up for a final attempt here to get into the next qualifying session. I was down to 11th place at this point, but everybody was coming through to set a lap, and I was shuffling down the order very quick. By the time we came through to the end of the lap, we were 19th down to 20th here down the front straightaway. Lando Norris, by the way, did not make a lap, and neither did Max Verstappen there, and we go through and we advance into Q2. We go actually second quickest right there. Whoever made a lap basically the latest was sitting in the best situation, but Verstappen and Norris didn't put in a lap on the inters, and they are out in Q1. The defending champion of Max Verstappen is out. Lando Norris has had a rough start to the season, so has Verstappen, just based off of one race so far. They are out in Q1. You saw as well, I think the Mercedes, one of the Mercedes drivers was on the wet tires, but they were able to advance because they're just so fast. But we come through to start Q2, and I did a lap right at the end of the session because this session started out wet in the intermediate conditions, and it wasn't until the very end of the session when the dry tire was able to be put up on the car after the track, of course, had dried out. And I thought I ran a decent lap. You saw quite a big mistake early in Sector 1 for myself, and I think that made the difference here because we crossed the line and we do not advance into Q2. We qualify P12 here in Italy for the Imola GP here, so very unfortunate. I was expecting to be in Q3, but it wasn't meant to be. Let's head to the grid.
Welcome once again to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. The clue's in the name. This is very much Ferrari home turf, and the locals will be out in force today to support their team in what we hope will be a magnificent spectacle of motorsport. On then to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, a lap of Imola. Anti-clockwise, of course, unlike most of the Formula One circuits, will take our drivers around 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin at turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and P2 goes to Daniel Ricciardo, a strong showing from the Australian. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Vettel, Carlos Sainz, and Gasly, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Russell, and Esteban Ocon. Bottas, they've taken a grid penalty. The rookie, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Latifi, Joe, Stroll, Callum Ilott, and Max Verstappen, Norris, and Mick Schumacher. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
There you saw the grid getting ready to go green here in Imola. Now it's looking like a one-stop race. A soft compound tire potentially to a hard tire. We could as well do the medium to a hard, but I decided to roll with the softs to the hard compound here. Now, as we're ready to go lights out on the grid, the formation lap gets underway. Lewis Hamilton on pole, joined by Daniel Ricciardo there on the front row, the Australian here, as we were ready to take the green flag here in Imola now. So wasn't sure what to expect in our first ever race here. We have good pace in the car this season. If we can get a top 5, that would be really good, but it depends on who has trouble. If it's like Bahrain, where we have both Mercedes or something, McLarens and Red Bull have trouble, we could be on the podium here today. Now this is going to be 5 red lights. Hamilton, Ricciardo now are going to be on the front row as it's lights out and we are underway here in Imola. Now Hamilton with a really good start there. Ricciardo not so much. He's under attack already from Perez. We saw Verstappen has to work his way all the way through the grid here today, so the defending champion will be watching him throughout this race. Now as you see, Ricciardo holds on to that second position there. Bottas getting his elbows up, getting a little bit aggressive right there, just behind us, or just in front of us, sorry, here, as I am engulfed in traffic as well here, just trying to survive at this point. I'm side by side with the Alpine right there, but we end up on the winning side of that battle here now, as you see everybody just duking it out here now, as Hamilton though out in front here after half a lap complete just about in Imola. Very quick laps around this track, less than a minute and 20 seconds it is to get around here, so a very fast track now. As you can see, the Williams of Latifi going side by side with the Alpine, just about 3 wide back there with Lando Norris in the Andretti Autosport car as Verstappen. That's not what he wants to see. He's in an Andretti sandwich right now as he's trying to follow Lando Norris through the traffic here. Lando Norris there still side by side with the Alpine, nearly some contact right there, but he keeps it clean. And now Verstappen as well was trying to make a move here. Now as you're going to see, everybody was just tussling it out here now, nobody giving anybody any room whatsoever here now, as we were though kind of settling in here currently in P12, and then an opportunity to go up the inside of Giovinazzi right there on the exit of the final corner. Up into 11th place we would go. We briefly settled in behind Bottas, and then by the time we came through the start of lap 3, DRS of course gets enabled, but only one DRS zone in Imola, and that's his front straightaway right here. So it would be a little bit before we would even have an opportunity now. So just behind us, Lando Norris here on the start of lap 3 actually got in an incident right there with the Williams. He would go around into the sand pit, and that is a huge hit for his day now, which has already not been a good day for him starting in the back. Now as you saw right there, Bottas actually had a really weird angle out of that left-hander, and this whole section's all about carrying momentum, and we had momentum. He didn't. We're able to pounce on it and we get past him, but now he's actually right on my gearbox here as we head down towards the chicane, so he's not going to give up there in the Mercedes. I actually backed out. I said, you know what, if you're that desperate at this point on lap 3 of 32, you can have it, go ahead and do your thing. So we settle in just behind him again down in P11, but then now we have DRS down the front straightaway just a few moments later, so now we're going to swing over to the right hand side of Valtteri and pass him there, our season 1 champion in our My Driver career mode. Now as you can see, that engine power of this Aston Martin is just unbelievable right now. Lewis Hamilton though, this was missed. This was actually on lap 3. Him and Ricciardo made contact right there, and Hamilton picked up some wing damage battling for the lead, so now he was struggling with handling in his car. He would drop down to 3rd place behind Sebastian Vettel, who's had a great GP so far, up into 2nd place, but he would continue to struggle as this GP was going on, as these opening laps are going on. Now he would also get passed by Perez, and he was down into the 4th position. Before we knew it, actually got passed by Gasly as well. He was then starting to back up this group that I was in right here now, and he was just of course trying to survive into the first pit stop of the day here. Now as I have DRS right on the back of Charles Leclerc, we're going to go around the right hand side of him and we move up in front of our Ferrari rival team here. That's the kind of team we're trying to really focus on beating this season. They're nearly pile drove into the back of the gearbox of Yuki Tsunoda right there, but you saw Sainz get past Hamilton, and then I use a DRS and ERS on overtake to get past Yuki Tsunoda, and then we would set our sights on Lewis Hamilton, who's really struggling with that wing damage. He really can't defend very much, and sure enough, on lap 8, coming to lap 9, here's a move to the left-hand side of the 7-time Formula 1 World Champion of Lewis Hamilton here down towards turns 1. We are going to be able to pass him, move now up into 6th place. So we've been on the move these last few laps, and it would continue to lap 10. Now a move to the left-hand side of Sainz, and look at that engine power come into play. Unbelievable. Of course, we do have the DRS enabled in the ERS and overtake. Now Hamilton actually just pitted behind us. He, I guess, got tired of trying to nurse this thing to that first stop, so it comes in about a lap or 2 earlier than you probably were expecting. So now to lap 11, we're closing in on Sergio Perez, and as well as Gasly. Not so much Perez as we are Gasly. We were really closing in on the AlphaTauri BMW, but he would pit, Perez would pit, Ricciardo would pit. So the only drivers that stayed out right here were myself and my teammate Sebastian Vettel. Ocon was staying out as well because he was on the medium compound. Everyone pretty much going to the hard compound tire. Sebastian Vettel would come in a few moments later here on lap 13, and actually they're going to replace their front wing on our Aston Martin teammate. So Vettel had picked up some wing damage somewhere, and then everybody behind him is coming in as well, including Max Verstappen, who started at the back of the grid. Now, while this was all happening, I was presented with a strategy change. Instead of putting the hard tire on for a one-stop, I was offered to do a one-stop on the medium compound tire there, as Lewis Hamilton has just set the fastest lap of the GP. So we see the raw speed that Lewis Hamilton has here today when he doesn't have some form of wing damage. Now, as we say that, Lewis Hamilton is retiring from the Imola GP. He pulls off the track, an engine failure there for the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton out in Imola there. A big hit to him moments after setting the fastest lap of the GP here. Very unfortunate for him. To lap 15, we continue racing on now, and we're getting ready to pit. I stretched out my first run on the soft tires as long as I could because we were trying to do a medium compound tire to the end of this race. So we are going to have a very nice advantage in the beginning part of this final run where everybody's on the hard compound. I'm on a fresh set of medium tires, which are going to be way faster than the hard tires, but how long will they last? That's the real question here now, as we exit our pit box. A very strong pit stop there, 2.8 seconds now as Daniel Ricciardo, the leader, comes through. He takes the lead back away. Perez is going to come through a few seconds later. And now where will we compare to our teammate Sebastian Vettel? He spent a bunch of extra seconds there in the pit box replacing his front wing, and sure enough, it's going to be very close here with Sebastian, but I think we're going to get out in front of him here, and yes, we will. We are in front of the 4-time world champion of Sebastian Vettel. Up into 3rd place we go. Now, he was not going to give it up so easy. We came through to the front straight away with DRS for Sebastian. He blew me right away. I was unbelievably surprised by that. I thought we were going to drive away from him the whole lap. Nope. He actually stuck with me, closed in even more, and then just drove away. So the next few laps, it was just me spending, trying to get the tires kind of going, get up to temperature, and just get this car going the way it needs to be going. And then finally, coming to lap 19 with the aid of DRS, we got back to Vettel, and we're actually able to swing around the left-hand side and move back up into 3rd place for the time being. But it took a few laps for this car to really get going on this set of medium tires, which was interesting to say the least, but at least we were up into 3rd, and now we can go try to hunt down both Perez and Daniel Ricciardo here before this GP is over. We have quite an advantage on them as we go through the grid there. Ricciardo P1, Perez 2nd place. There is a little bit of lap traffic with Schumacher as well as Guan Yu there for the Andretti Autosport driver now, as you see myself and Vettel P3, P4, and we're starting to open up a little bit of a gap to our teammate of Vettel. Gasly there having a tremendous run in the AlphaTauri BMW in 5th place, beating the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Verstappen having an incredible drive from the back of the grid so far, up in 7th place. We'll see how far he can get in these final 13 laps. Tsunoda, Giovinazzi, and Russell rounding out the top 10. Williams this season, just in general, having a lot better of a start in their cars, quite a ways up there on the R&D chart now, as you see Callum out there for Andretti having a solid run here in 12th place. Ocon, Leclerc, who just actually came out of the pit lane, he might have picked up some wing damage. Leclerc did, as you see Bottas down in 16th place as well. He as well picked up some wing damage and had to come to the pit lane, and I'll show the reason here for Bottas. He was actually in a battle with Max Verstappen right there. They're going to make some contact. You see it right there, similar to Hamilton when he made contact with Ricciardo, and Bottas had to pit and replace that front wing. Back to myself here now, closing in on 10 laps to go, closing in on Perez, 1.2 seconds behind, but the safety car comes out with 11 laps remaining. Lando Norris is out of the session. We have an incident there with Bottas involved in an Alpine. I don't know if that's Ocon or Russell here, as it now looks like it's Esteban Ocon actually there, as there was a big moment right there, and then Norris comes pile driving into the back of Bottas there, as you saw Ocon just try to make an aggressive move on the Andretti Autosport driver, and a safety car, of course, comes out. Not a huge incident there, but enough to, of course, warrant a safety car, and everybody would be getting ready. I didn't really want to see a safety car personally, so I was a little bit disappointed about that, because now we would be having a restart with less than 10 laps to go here. Now at the end of lap 25, safety car coming in, but now we're at least close to Perez, but I kind of got caught sleeping right there. Ricardo got going really well, and so did Perez, and I didn't, but we got the overtake mode on, so we get right to the back gearbox of Perez here now as we make this lunge towards turn 1. We're side by side on the right hand side with Perez, but I'm going to actually back out there. I didn't feel like we could comfortably get through turns 1 and 2 safely here. Now as you see the Ferrari scrapping it out hard there with the Max Verstappen Red Bull BMW right there. Now as everybody on these restarts have been crazy, the original start of this race was very chaotic, and they're not going to mess around here again either. Now as I have Vettel all over my gearbox, I got very free there on the exit of the hairpin, but fortunately we're able to stay in front of our teammate of Vettel. But there you see Ricardo Perez driving away at this point now, and once again I was feeling similar to where I did earlier when I exited the pit lane. The car just didn't want to take off right away, and you're gonna see that I got loose right there, and here comes Sebastian Vettel. He's gonna look to my left hand side, and I decided, you know what, you can just take the position at this point. I don't want to fight you, let's just see what we can do. I was thinking potentially that my medium tires were already falling off, so you see myself checking it right there really quick. But now as we came through to lap 27, still right behind Vettel, I decided not to make a move down into turn 1. Then I make a bit of a mistake there, unfortunately, through turns 1 and 2. So we kind of lose a little bit of ground there to Sebastian, but I know Sebastian's got a lot of speed, so I was trying to kind of just let him have his moment, run down Perez, see if he can do anything, and maybe do anything with Ricardo as well. And DRS will be enabled next lap. Now, so it's actually caution there on the minimap. You see it looks like a Mercedes, a Bottas, and a Ferrari. I'm going to assume Leclerc are off the track, and so is an Andretti car. They come to a stop, and the safety car is going to come out again for the second time in just a handful of laps. Bottas is out. What in the world just led to that? Let's get a look here now, as I did not want to see that safety car. Here's an onboard view with Bottas there. You see the Williams now. Oh my goodness, Valtteri just sailed it off into the left-hander, and then just sailed it off into the sand pit, and you can see Leclerc had nowhere to go. What in the world was Valtteri doing? Then you see Callum Ilott actually just for some reason puts himself in the sand. So safety car out again. 2 safety cars within the final 10 laps of the Imola GP here, as we would get ready to go green again now from P4. And I learned a lot on that last restart that I was hoping that I could utilize those learning tools to really play a big factor in how this final potential restart goes here. Now it's going to be 3 laps to go in Imola. We get a great restart there, a fire restart. We're going to lunge to the left hand side of Vettel there, but not enough there. He has slipstream, so I go back to the right hand side. Vettel, he's going to make a move to the right hand side of Perez down into turn 1. This is a crucial pass for him there, as they're going to make contact. Vettel and Perez come wheel to wheel, and Vettel picks up some wing damage. I'm able to go by him and move up into 3rd place, but Vettel immediately, you can see, is relatively off the pace compared to everybody else. He cannot turn that car whatsoever, and up into 3rd place I go behind Sergio Perez. What a wild GP it has been. Unfortunately for a lot of drivers that have better cars than us, they've had trouble, and Daniel Ricciardo is now cruising to a victory. Now as I say that, Daniel Ricciardo is pulling off the track. The Australian who's dominated here today is out of the Imola GP. An engine failure there for Daniel Ricciardo. We're now into 2nd place, runner up behind Sergio Perez and the Red Bull BMW. We had the tire advantage. Can we run him down? Our teammate Vettel had to come into the pit lane at the end of lap 30, so he had to replace that wing, and now it's just me trying to hunt down Sergio Perez as Verstappen. What a drive for him. He's up in the 4th place behind Pierre Gasly now as we come through to start the final lap here in Imola. Now as I tried to save my ERS the best I could, and we're going to use it as much as we possibly can here on this final lap. DRS enabled, but we can't use it at the point of when it gets actually enabled there on the front straightaway, so we don't have any DRS to help us on this final lap. You saw a lot of oversteer out of that hairpin there as we are closing in on the final moments here of this final lap here now as we come through into the chicane. Now we gain a ton of time on the back half of the track within a few car lengths we got there, but we stretch it out a little bit unfortunately here as we head down towards that penultimate corner. Perez in harvesting mode now as we head down towards this penultimate turn. Is it going to be anything? I don't think it's going to happen now, as we needed to be at least right on his gearbox. Now we get a good exit, but our DRS, our ERS is going to be completely drained, and Perez wins. He hangs on in an unbelievable Imola GP. We finish runner-up 2nd place here in our first ever race at Imola. Unbelievable, and driver of the day is going to go to Max Verstappen, rightfully so. Let's head to the podium celebration.
So as they climb out of the car, the Red Bull team are ready and waiting to celebrate a thoroughly well-deserved win. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
What a GP here at Imola. We start the season off back-to-back podiums. Unbelievable. And if it wasn't for Bottas, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Norris, Verstappen, their issues, we obviously wouldn't really be in a position for a podium, even for Vettel as well. Same situation as Bahrain, where about 5 or 6 competitors that are better than us on the grid in terms of a car had issues. And it happened again here today in Imola, and we pounced on it and got a second place finish. And if we had one more lap, we could have easily passed Perez down that front straightaway towards turns 1. So that was unfortunate. We are second in the standings here. Now, Vettel, of course, didn't get the finish that he deserved. He was downright better than I was today. Had more pace, but just didn't work out, unfortunately, for Sebastian. But what a GP, to say the least. In the next one, we're heading to Portimao there in Portugal. That's a track I'm very excited for. I don't know what kind of pace we'll have now, as there is a very long, sweeping final corner through the front straightaway that I think our engine is really going to enjoy. But the rest of that track, other than another straightaway, it's mostly going to be cornering speed. So it'll be interesting to see where our car stacks up compared to the competition there. But it's going to be interesting, to say the least. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. That was what a race. Both races so far to start the season have just been absolute bangers. Perez here with the GP victory there, as we are on the podium in the first 2 races of the season. Very happy about that. Thank you all for taking the time of your day to watch this episode and other ones on the channel, and thank you to the members. You'll be at the end here as well. I really do appreciate you guys' support, and I'll see you guys in the next one in Portimao. Have a great day, everybody.